everybody, ChristopherOdd here. I wanted to take some time to go through the books that we had found in Daud's hideout. That's all this episode is going to be. If you're not interested in hearing any of the backstories, which are actually pretty cool, that's fine. No worries. You can skip this video, and the next video will be carrying on from where we left off in episode 1. So, I am going to go through everything that we got here. A note from Billie, even though I had read it in the previous episode, I'll go through it here because it's fairly short. So, Billie is the assassin that we worked with in the Knife of Dunwall. So, Daud, no need to waste breath with apologies or excuses. You taught me that. All I can say is that as soon as I left Dunwall, my head felt clear, maybe for the first time. You told me once that people like us burn up, or burn hot, then burn up. We don't get a chance to start over. No long days in the sun. But I know you, Daud. Despite all the blood on your hands, you've been stashing coin. No one does that if they're not holding on to something. You've got some kind of plan, some hope for a new life. Maybe you knew, maybe you didn't, but that's what you gave me when you let me walk away. The one thing you said wasn't possible. And I'll never forget that, when the time comes, and it will. I hope you're watching close, so you get that chance too. I left a book for you. The world is big, bigger than I knew. There are lots of places where an old man like you could disappear. Billie. Now, this book that she gave us is actually Ports of Call right here, which I had read through in the previous episode. I will not redo this one because it's really just landscape stuff. I covered off almost all of it in the first episode, but the rest I'm going to read word for word. So, the Royal Spy Master. This is an excerpt from a historical record of government positions and ranks. It is said that the office of the Royal Spy Master has existed for as long as there have been emperors and empresses. However, in the earliest days of the Empire, this position existed in secrecy. Only after the Morley insurrection was the position publicly acknowledged due to the tremendous role that the acting Spy Master played in quelling the rebellion. Originally, members of the military or officers of the City Watch were advocated for the role, chosen by the Admiralty. In recent years, the outgoing Spy Master has made recommendations on his replacement from the small cadre, or COD, I'm not sure how that's pronounced actually, of espionage agents serving him. In this way, continuity is preserved, since many of the covert projects undertaken by the government are not committed to writing, only communicated in whispers behind secure doors. This leads to the most common critique of the office of the Royal Spy Master, that actions are taken and deeds committed that even the Emperor or Empress is not aware of. This lack of oversight or accountability is a commonly debated topic during parliamentary sessions, but those who hold the position of Royal Spy Master insist that in order to function, the role must exist outside existing bureaucracy or law. Interesting. The Knife of Dunwall, a survivor's tale. Now, this is from a street pamphlet containing a sensationalized sighting of the assassin Daud. Gentle reader, be assured that your coin is well spent today. What you read here may one day preserve your life and your sanity. No one has seen the Knife of Dunwall and lived to tell of it until now. The sun was setting, a bloody stain against the sky, silhouetting the noble contours of Rothwell's slaughterhouse. The stench of blood, the flesh of men and whales, soured the air. Daud slithered from the sewers, his body slick with gore and crawling with vermin that no mortal man could have tolerated. His shadow stretched out before him on the ground, and it revealed his true nature. A horned thing warped by hearsay. A shape too terrible to put into words, my gentle readers. A sorcerer from the void without question. I could hear the moans of the dying workers he left in his wake, but he did not even pause to acknowledge their plight, for his heart is colder than Tivian ice. Instead, he let out a guttural howl of victory, the shock of which snuffed out the life of those poor dying workers, and then he bounded away, moving from roof to roof back towards the streets. And this was where I thought this chapter would end until I heard the music. The grinding metal music of the overseers echoed from the nearby alleyways, and I knew there would soon be a fight. With only my sense of duty to the fallen citizens of Dunwall to keep my fear from overtaking me, I inched closer to the mouth of the alley for a better vantage. A brave contingent of overseers had captured one of Daud's lieutenants lurking in the alley. So this is actually recounting when they caught Billie Lurk and we had to save her. He or she, for I could not tell beneath the thick leather of the industrial whaler suit, was prone and tied with sturdy ropes surrounded by overseers, but their fixation was ultimately their undoing. Daud fell from above, moving through the air as easily as a falcon, I swear it upon my spirit. Without sound, he glided down among them, and the music maker was the first to die as Daud tore the man's head from his shoulders. The wretched song faded in a discordant wail. Then I watched as the most notorious assassin of our time became a flurry of leather, metal, and blood, deflecting bullets and sword blades with ease. The last overseer, no doubt consumed with terror at seeing his brothers fall so easily, sank to his knees and begged for mercy. Daud spoke a single word that made my entrails squirm in my belly upon hearing it. The overseer shrieked like a madman until his mask split in two, as though struck by some hammer and chisel, and a stream of blood gushed forth from the crack, bathing Daud's boots. I closed my eyes at that point, too overwhelmed to witness any further atrocity. I could only hope that if that foul heretic discovered me next, my life would end swiftly. But when I opened my eyes, Daud was nowhere to be seen. That was the last I ever saw of the Knife of Dunwall. So heed my warning, gentle reader. Should you or anyone you love witness some mishappen or misshapen shadow fall across your path, or should you hear the slightest rumor of dark words whispered from the rooftops, then flee. Flee with all haste. That's pretty cool, actually. The Whalers. This is an excerpt from a journalist report on organized criminal activity. One gentleman of advanced age swore that his brother had been taken by the Whalers, a notorious gang associated with a man called Daud. According to Peter Mansfield, I don't know if that's like a joke on Peter Mansfield. That's actually kind of funny. He was like a famous news anchor. His brother Radolf was proud of working with the Royal Spy Masters Responsible Citizens Group, the RSRCG, feeling no shame in reporting on what he perceived as shady dealings by his rivals at the fish markets. But this might have been the source of his trouble. On the 6th evening of the month of Hearths, Radolf came storming into Peter's home, white-faced and panic-stricken, claiming to have been chased by a group of ruffians wearing the leather suits and vapor masks used by the men working in the whale oil factories. Peter gave him supper and drink, sending him on his way later in the night, after which Radolf was never seen again. The Isle of Serkonos, excerpt from a volume on Serkonan geography and culture. Serkonos, the jewel of the south, is best known for its warm winds, spiced foods, and endless beaches. While the city of Calero sees the heaviest flow of travelers from across the Isles, Karnaca, on the southernmost edge of the known world, is preferred among the elite of the Empire. It is said that a month spent resting beneath the sun of the beaches of Serkonos or within one of the rural villages can cure most maladies. Travelers bring back recipes and styles from the south, and the dances that all Serkonans learn in their youth are favored in Bristol for their sensuality, copied by the fashionable aristocracy in the capital city of Dunwall. The only persistent trouble in Serkonos originates along the string of tiny islands stretching away from the mainland to the east. For generations, pirates have hidden among this archipelago, raiding traders passing between the isles, and more recently, attacking whaling ships returning with rich stores of oil. Now, Thomas's journal, this was the assassin, and he's the guy we contact to leave Daud's base and head out of here. So, he's written this in careful hand, and it's a recent journal entry. Our troubles began with a name, Delilah, a mystery given to Daud by the face he sees in his dreams and whose voice he hears when kneeling at the shrines hidden in the lost parts of the city. None of us have ever heard this voice, but we know its power. It spoke to our master, telling him of his coming down and saying that solving this riddle was the only way to escape. We knew nothing of Delilah except that we found a whaling ship by that name. A tenuous connection, but where the outsider's world is concerned, there are no coincidences. We discovered the ship was named after a woman who once walked the halls of Dunwall Tower with Jessamine Caldwin. Later, she became a painter, an apprentice of Sokolov himself, until she snared an aristocratic patron named Arnold Timsh. We met with Timsh's niece, who offered us information on Delilah in exchange for eliminating her uncle. Removing aristocrats was our specialty, so our master agreed. With Barrister Arnold Timsh gone, his niece divulged everything she knew. Delilah was much more than a painter, and she was hiding in the old Brigmore Manor outside the city. But by then we were too late. Delilah anticipated our threat. For some time, she had been working her corruptive influence on the best of us, the assassin Billie Lurk. Delilah turned Lurk against us, and together they sold us out to the overseers. When we returned to our hideout in the flooded district, we were swarmed by gold masks and hounds. But Daud is quick and wise in our trade. In the end, he kept us alive, though there were losses. Now our resources are strained. Some of the men are grumbling. I see the strain on Daud's face, killing the Empress, handing over her daughter. Those are not easy burdens to bear. And Lurk's betrayal weighs on him heavily. His sleep is troubled by curses and shouts. Now we make preparations to strike back at Delilah. She's planning something in Brigmore, something that affects everyone in the Isles, and she will be expecting us. Like our master, she shares her gifts from the outsider with those who follow her. How many are they, I wonder? I have no secrets from my master. My loyalty is without question, but I fear these may be the last days of the Whalers. Perhaps the last days of Daud. Ooh, interesting. So this journal basically summarizes everything that happened in the Knife of Dunwall, and a little bit foreshadows perhaps what's happening here in the Brigmore Witches. That's cool. Best one so far. Okay, the Metaphysica Mysterium. Excerpt from a longer banned work on supernatural ritual. This is probably talking about the outsider. It is said that we should not sully our hands when combating the forces of the void. My studies have been deemed heretical by my brothers, but the rewards have been invaluable. I have harnessed the same energies employed by the outsider and his accursed followers while avoiding their corruption. I will prescribe a twofold method in this text. Indirection, as the unwholesome powers of the outsider use living flesh as a conduit, we can avoid being tainted by using the flesh of others instead. Containment, by using channels and barriers, we can focus these void energies into a raw state, shielding them from the perverse perspectives of the outsider. Very cool. A Reclamation of Dunwall, excerpt from a pamphlet published in response to the plague. Dunwall, the seat of power in the known civilized world, the empire of the Isles. It is our great capital, and it has been brought low by vermin. The very thought galls. We are faced with the reality that our once great city is in a state of shambles, and the few remaining domiciles in any habitable condition are the estates of those wealthy enough to ward themselves against that reality. A city cannot continue to thrive, populated by only the upper classes and their cloistered sycophants. Even if the plague were gone tomorrow, in its present state, Dunwall doesn't have enough hardy people of working age to return the city to everyday function. We must find a way to attract more residents, which requires removing the cloud of fear brought about by the current regime. The Lord Regent and his lackeys are bad for business, my friends. So it falls on us. A plague and a tyrant must be overcome. And after that, we must undertake a third miracle, turning the screws on the obscenely wealthy, forcing them to pay back into the place that has given them their privileged lives. It is the powerful and fortunate who must pay for the rebuilding of Dunwall, even if the poorest will bear the stones and timbers of reconstruction on their backs. That's pretty powerful. All this must happen for the dormant machine of commerce to restart. Without that, we are all forfeit, and the greatest city of our age will be lost. Pretty cool. Okay, we got a couple more here. Cobbled Bits of Bone. Excerpt from a journal covering various occult artifacts. This is probably talking about the charms or the runes, or both. They say my mother was a witch, but the truth, as is so often the case, depends on perspective and your place in the world. She relied on poisons made from exotic herbs and the blowfish that live in the reef waters near Pandysia. Her powers originated in hallucinogenics delivered through guile or by force to those who crossed her. There was an unusual intensity in her gaze for certain, but it came from within, not from the outsider. It's what happens to anyone pushed to the absolute edge of sanity and survival, who stays there for years, then returns to walk among the sheep in so-called civilized society. My mother was crafty, but if it was anything more than powders, hidden knives, and guile, I never saw it. Like they tell children, some of those truly touched by the black-eyed bastard can move through the space between rooftops like a sparrow. Others command armies of rats or poisonous flies as easy as they wriggle their fingers and toes. The overseers are right to fear us, to warn the common folk to stay near their homes at night and keep their families close. But there are other ways his influence manifests itself. Those who serve me share in some of what I can do, and I suspect it's the same for Delilah Copperspoon's coven. So this guy, whoever's writing this, has some of these powers from the outsider, and he shares some of those powers with his group. Same with Delilah, same with Daud. Then there are those who craft runes and charms. The old woman across town, they call her Granny Rags. Oh, she's good. She carves and polishes the bones of whales, stringing them together and opening them to the void until they moan like the fever sick on a cold night. I found a few of her talismans, and with each one I touched, a tiny piece of me departed and settled in with her. What does she gain? A longer life? Some other kind of power I don't understand? The making of such things is beyond me. I've known 4 people in my time who carried the mark of the outsider, but I've known dozens more who wanted it, who stood at night in stagnant ponds or begged with the dust blowing through graveyards. People who gutted farm animals or burned the flesh of men, thinking it would call forth the void. I met a dying man once who had collected runes and charms for years. He crushed them all into powder, made a paste, and ate them, thinking he could gain whatever magic was in these things. His death was long and painful. I also knew a woman from Karnaca who would trade for charms and other bits of whalebone. She cracked them apart and fused them back together, then sold them. I bought one of these corrupted... Okay, so this is where the corrupted charms come from. I bought one of these corrupted charms that she swore would cause sharp metal to break on my skin, and it worked. But each time it did, one of my teeth turned black and fell out. After the third time, I gave it to one of my men. Now when he smiles, it's all bleeding gums. And I wonder what parts inside him are turning black. Jesus. Sometimes I ask myself, without these gifts, would I be a man to fear? Would I be called the Knife of Dunwall? With my name whispered through the markets and the alleyways, the high towers and drawing rooms. Oh, so this is actually written by Daud. I'd like to think so, but it really doesn't matter. As long as I bear this mark, I'll use whatever craft I have to force my will on the world. The harder trick is undoing what I've done. Very interesting. I'm assuming this is written by Daud then, just based on the end there. How it's saying, would I be called the Knife of Dunwall, which Daud is. Regency and emergency powers. In a time of political upheaval, there are provisions in place for a staged transfer of power designed with 3 goals in mind. The first is the minimization of incentive for coup. There is no predetermined person or position within the government that is scheduled to take on the mantle of regency during a time of crisis. Instead, a regent is chosen by parliamentary accord. This serves to avoid promoting a path of derelict ascendancy and to discourage those who would scheme for such a turn of events. It is the assumption of our governing documents that such a legislative body will always have the wisdom to see through would-be usurpers. The second is the assurance of stability for the commons during and after the transitional phase. During an interregnum, while a regent rules the land, there are categories of laws and decrees that cannot be altered without a majority of vote from Parliament. Thus, daily life for the people will not change dramatically when during the time of regency, or shift drastically once a proper heir takes up the throne. That's actually really smart. Third, and perhaps most important, is that a worthy successor is found. In order to rule out hasty action and to maximize stability, there will be no term limit or duration applied to the period of regency. Historically, rash decisions have been greatly contested, resulting in extended political turmoil or outright conflict. When the proper heir is found and the position is filled by someone worthy of the role, all others will fall in and provide their support. So this is mostly about the politics of the region, which is really cool. And then last but not least, I said I wasn't going to read it, but I might as well, even though I've read most of this before. Ports of Call. So this is an excerpt from a guide to port cities. Just going to tell us a little bit about the geography. Potterstead Gristol, a small town, but the locals are charming and the ale is unmatched. Be certain to visit the Months of Winds for their pennant festival. Dunwall Gristol. Now this is where most of the story had already taken place. Notes on the capital city could fill a dozen such volumes. All delights exist in Dunwall if you've got the coin, and all miseries if you're broke. Unless you're well connected through someone in Dunwall Tower, one of the key families, the City Watch or River Patrol, make sure your permits are in order. Otherwise, you're likely to have your cargo seized by the port authorities for any reason they care to concoct. Kilkenny Morley. While the harbour master here is particular about the kinds of goods you're carrying, the rest of the town is more lax. Be sure to visit the inn on the rock for the best mutton stew in all the isles. Yarrow Tivia. The cold here will snatch the breath from your lungs, but is met in equal strength by the civility of its well-mannered citizens. The cozy taverns are kept warm by their famously crafted iron stoves, though the northern food takes some adjustment. Bejeweled aristocrats laugh and drink side by side with weathered, leathery-skinned farmers, clapping one another on the back until the dim hours. It is hard to make a friend here or to truly understand the worldview of the native-born, but once you do, you'll have a friend for life. Calero Serkonos. This city is crowded in the warmer months, and for good reason. You'll find yourself shoulder to shoulder with scantily clad locals and foreigners on holiday, pale skin burned pink by the sun, which somehow seems larger and brighter in Serkonos. The food in Calero is a shining example of Serkonan cuisine, and there is always music, always dancing, hand-rolled on the steps of tobacco shops. The cigars are, of course, fresher than the ones you've had shipped to other parts of the Empire. Karnaca Serkonos, the jewel of the south at the end of the world. At the edge of the world. The city is bustling with industry. After a wave of settlers from Morley and an influx of wealthy trading companies from Dunwall, everywhere you go in Karnaca, there are new ideas, hybrid forms of music, groundbreaking theories of natural philosophy, and even extravagant delicacies made by mixing ingredients. From all the known cultures, the locals work tirelessly for their coin, welcoming the elite from across the Isles. All right, so I believe that is everything that we have so far. Here's a quick review of our powers. Our bone charms, we selected the bottom 3. We tried a corrupted one. I mean, movement speed doesn't seem to be so badly affected. We still have blink, obviously. And then inventory, we have a rune. We have a bunch of these blueprints to make some upgrades. And I think, looks like a couple things carried over. I'm not sure on the capacities of what I had before, but looks like a lot of things have probably carried over. So I just want to say, guys, thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed this reading of the books of Daud's base. It's a lot of really important stuff in here to fully grasp what's happening, and I didn't want to include it in the first episode because it would have been literally all reading instead of checking out Daud's place and doing some upgrades. In the next episode, we'll be getting to, I assume, some stealthy stealth, and I'm pretty excited about it. We'll talk to you guys then. Bye.